Just want to make a random thought video about education system and AI. I I did prompt the AI about just a summary. Like, I'm pretty sure this is happening. I can't imagine otherwise. That if everyone has access to something like ChatGPT, including students, how do teachers grade assignments now, right? And this was addressed in the South Park episode, and I could totally see this happening as a dilemma. And now I was very curious about the differences between Japan and the US in terms of the, let's say, how they approach the change. And if I'm to believe the summary that the AI gave me, it said that Japan is leaning heavily towards resistance. That is the anti-AI. It's cheating. Don't cheat. Do things the way it's always been done and avoid the tools. And the US is more inclined to be more experimental and say, let's modify the curriculum. That go ahead, use ChatGPT, but we'll change the challenge or the assignment to be something else. Whether that's done all over the US or only in select elite schools, I have no idea. But regardless of what the situation actually is, my personal take is just just theorizing here randomly. I'm not in favor of clinging to the old ways. I have seen how AI can assist with things like, okay, let's just say coding, all right? Like, I had to relearn the entire methodology, honestly. There's some similarities in coding with the old way and the new way, but I actually pounced on it as a wonderful opportunity to learn something new and to find out how it would work now. And it's changed everything. I don't really type code all that much anymore, but I have to develop a stronger sense of the overall architecture and how pieces fit in. And I like that. And clinging to the old ways, while it's okay in a sense of, like, let's say, let's celebrate tradition and let's preserve like culture, but when it comes to like advancing society or just operating in society as a whole, yeah, there's dangers that has to be managed, but resistance to it is going to lead to the so-called losing the race, I think, globally. Because if one country decides to adopt the tools and teach the upcoming generation how to use them effectively, I really think that country has a strong advantage in the future, because it's not about morals or ethics or anything like that. It's about what can you do with the tool. Like any other tool, like anything in life, tools can be used for good, bad, to cheat, or it can be used to create even greater things. And you just can't stop it. Like, the genie doesn't go back into the bottle, as the old adage says, and to resist it is, I think, foolish. But I don't know. There's good and bad. It's hard to say which one's better, but as someone who has kids living in Japan, I like Japan for its safety, but at the same time, the complete lack of risk aversion, and the complete like dedication towards conformity is something I just can't. Whatever, it's what it is, but this is why I personally would never invest in anything in Japan. Like, I'm very, very rarely, like, like they just don't have the balls, honestly, to take risks, to take the necessary risks, to go out there, face uncertainty head on, and say, I understand this is a risk. I understand this is uncertain, but living the other way, which is keep everything safe, keep everything certain as possible, is also a weird way of just dying slowly instead. So it's a kind of feeling that risk is always going to be there no matter what. You cannot eliminate it, you can only reduce it. And by there's a certain kind of lifestyle, I think, it's a little bit hard to describe, where you embrace risk openly, adopt it, you treat uncertainty as something you can kind of manage but never really suppress, and you welcome change and volatility and try to manage the negative outcomes. I think that is a better way personally to approach things, not just to suppress volatility, change. Like when you invest in stocks, do you go for the old blue chips, the old, or do you make bets on some promising but relatively unknown, just over tech, in tech over the last 20, 30 years. I've seen so many cases of people just shitting on new things and clinging on to the old. And of course, there's a bias here. So many of these have failed and they go under unnoticed, and the ones that succeed stand out greatly. But the other way, just cling to the old stuff all the time, isn't very appealing at all either. And yeah, I mean, Japan, I think, will never change because it's ruled by the old generation. And it's unfortunate. And honestly, if I wasn't so attached to my own house, my own property here, which I worked so hard to gain, I honestly would have tried to keep my wealth more mobile and lived more humbly at less cost somewhere else that's relatively unknown in the world, because yeah, honestly, it's time for me to leave this place. It's just I'm so attached to this property, and that's unfortunate. I don't know, shelter is just really rough. But anyway, it's a different topic. Overall, I think that the sooner that some, people can adopt AI, the LLMs, into their daily lives, I think it's better overall for people. There's less misinformation, there's more clarity, I think. You just have to learn how to write the right prompts. Never include assumptions in your prompts. You don't say that's really bad for these people, right? You don't say that. You ask a more neutral question, is this bad for these kinds of people? And test a negative hypothesis. Very basic stuff for anyone who's done scientific studies or thinking. You test both sides of this hypothesis, and you verify between different models, not just GPT, there's Gemini as well. And just with those tools alone, you can go very, very far. It expands on your line of thought, and I think it really complements the human gifts of intuition. Humans can scan many, when you go into default mode, you can often scan multiple domains and have a kind of a shallow but kind of a hunch, as they may call it, into something that you might find to be intriguing or interesting. And the AI will leverage your hunch and go real deep into that. And you might discover some really interesting ideas or things to pursue. I think it's a wonderful tool. I think that it's a time to embrace some new kinds of thinking, and the loss of jobs will be inevitable, I think, for the lower end jobs, but end of the day, it's these are inevitable consequences of technology, and while one might envision some kind of utopia with never changing technology, I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's possible. I think for some reason the feeling of never being satisfied with our current condition and always wanting something more is ingrained into the human condition, honestly. Conflict as well. The desire to always see like some kind of struggle. I've lived before in what we would call complete harmony and just maintenance mode, and I didn't like it, honestly. It looks good on paper, and you might want to present yourself to be content to the world, but honestly, all I felt was just stagnation. And I don't like stagnation. It's you're alive, but just going through the motions. And I don't mean with it all be like revolutionists and like start chopping people's heads off for like glory, but there is something to be said about a life that's too on rails, that's too predictable, that's too, the outcome is almost predetermined in certain ways, right? You need some chaos, basically.